my name is Ron Suggs, and I am here with Infinite Business Strategies. And this is our segment on leading through change on our broadcast that we do weekly on Let's Talk About It. Today we have Julie Spencer Washington. Julie Washington is one of the leaders in the industry at Change Leadership. And before I tell you about her, I'm going to let her tell you about herself. But I do want to say this before we get started. I am in awe and I am excited about the opportunity to sit down with my friend, my sister, and some people say we were separated at birth, but that's a different story. If we had time, we'll talk more about it. But I really want to let you know how excited I am about the opportunity to spend some time with her. So Julie, tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, what you do, and all of those good things.
Sure. Well, it's good to see you, my brother. And yes, we were separated at birth. I am happy to be here. I'm Julie Washington, and I am a mother of 3, a wife of 26 years. So I am the one that tries to balance things in life and ensuring that I pursue my purpose of myself, but purpose at home and purpose at work. And so what that's looked like in my journey is around plans and preparation. So I attended Emory University and I was pre-med, so I thought I was going to be a pediatrician. So the plan was to go into medicine and to help families and to ensure that I was focused on kids. And so life has a way of changing things. Still love science, and here I sit today as the Chief Marketing and Communications Officer at Trinity Health. So I'm not Dr. Washington, but I am Julie Washington and having an impact across a system in 22 states. And we're able to provide care and healing to our communities and ministries. So my journey and career has taken me through CPG as well as retail on the marketing and on the sales side. But through all of the learnings and the experiences, I think it all was brought together for this moment in time for me to enter healthcare in such a year as 2020. And so I'm excited to have this opportunity to partner with Trinity Health.
Whew, what a background. And I know you've sold yourself short on some of the things you've said. So again, we'll explore that down the road. But this whole thing around leading change, there's a lot that's going on in our society, a lot of change is happening, a lot of things that are going on both from a business standpoint and socially. And as a leader in a Fortune 500 company or any business, tell me, what does change leadership mean to you and why is it important?
I'll start with the why first. Change leadership is important because change is constant. As soon as you find the answer, there is yet another question. And so I think the best leaders, the ones their marks in life, but also in business, they're the ones that have learned how to navigate in the midst of things moving and learn how to ensure that they're not overwhelmed while leading, right? And so there are probably a couple of tenets that I've seen work well, both for me, but also as I've watched other leaders from afar or those right in an organization. In the midst of change that seems to be large or constant is starting with why. Simon Sinek has that book, but it's truly about understanding the context for change. What is the situation? What's going on that's causing us to have to move from where we were to a new place and maybe even to move towards something greater? And being able to explain to your team why we have to make the shift is a most important aspect of it. And as a marketer, as a communicator, we have to be even more so clear, but also consistent with the messages of why. I think the second piece is probably the last 5 years, people have talked a lot about transparency. And we say we want to be transparent. In the midst of leading change, you have to be transparent. Just as little babies know nice people and not so nice people, they cry with some people and they're not with others. At the end of the day, we have to be genuine and we have to be authentic and real. And whether that's changing your business model from, say, B2B to B2B to C, whichever way as a business owner or a leader or entrepreneur, you have to be transparent with those that you're in partnership, but also the people that you're leading about what you're doing and why you're doing it. And I'd probably say, Ron, the last piece would be around embracing change.
Mm-hmm.
How do we make sure that we don't fear things that we don't know, right?
Mm-hmm.
And being a mother of three, I love Dr. Seuss, and there is one of our favorites is green eggs and ham. Like, how do you bring that into business, right? But throughout the book, he's basically telling Sam not to give him these green eggs and hams because it doesn't look like anything he's ever eaten. Why would it ever taste good? Everything about it goes counter to what he knows to be true. And I think that if you don't fear things, but you learn to embrace it, you'll find there's good inside of those green eggs and ham, because by the end of the book, he's in love with them. And I think even with this pandemic, there's a lot of bad, there's a lot of sad that's there. Mm-hmm. But look at the speed of adoption that we've had, the spirit of innovation that's come about, and even the spirit of unity, because it was everyone solving for the same problem at the same time, regardless of the industry. So start with your why. Make sure that you're transparent, but also that you embrace the change. That's what I think great leaders have done when they're faced with constant change or big change.
Those are good nuggets, but I got to ask you this question. Change is difficult for us humans. We get into routines and we stay there, and we like things comfortable. We like things the way they are. How do you manage or lead through that? How do you convince me that this move is good?
I think it's core to purpose. And when we understand why this business exists, that's one thing I would encourage us never to do, is change the purpose of who you are in the midst of change, right? And I would implore you to go back to your mission, because that's where the passion, that's why you get up in the morning when it's hard as well as when it's easy. And so when people don't understand, you have to communicate a little bit more about what's that story, paint the picture, get them engaged and get them involved in the mission, the purpose, and why they signed on to be a part of this team that solves whatever problem or provides whatever the service is. And I think when you get to that core place, all of the other ancillary pieces are not as predominant in their mind, and you don't have as much resistance. But I've seen greater success when you tap into the emotive place of why are we truly doing the work that we do, and say that we get fulfillment out of it.
Okay. And you said something else earlier. You talked about transparency, and that's a blinking word, right? It can mean a lot of things. So transparency, how far do I go as a leader in letting the organization know the really reals? Because it could scare us.
That's exactly right. I'll use it similar to as a parent. There's only so much a parent should tell and can tell a child. Okay. They are part of the family, and you do need them to have a full understanding of why we're relocating or why we've made this decision. But you can't always bring them fully into, I'll call it the sausage making. It's too messy. It's just too much for them. But I believe that's what a leadership team, an executive team will do best, is take care of all the stuff that could get you distracted or get you confused, but then crystallize it such that now I can tell you fully the reason why we have to make this shift is because our finances are not what they were pre-COVID. And therefore, we're going to all have to tighten our belt, and there's going to be some consolidation or whatever the story is. But I think that's where you have to protect those who can't handle the whole story, but they also are not going to be a part of making the hard decisions.
So as a leader, you think about each of us have different personalities. So you may have some folks that are, really transformative or at least progressive and from a thought process. And you have some folks that even on the leadership team wants to stay where they are. How do you fight against having one part of the organization or leadership go one direction and then the other part of the organization or leadership go a different direction? How do you keep that together?
One of the things I think, since we're in a political season, that
Yes, we are.
learn yeah, that you learn really quickly is every vote matters.
Okay.
And so in any leadership, no matter which way the votes are going, you need to take those conversations as one by one, because usually people are resisting a particular part. They're not usually resisting the entire concept. But if you don't unpack and understand and listen to what it is, then you make assumptions and then you try to force things on people, and that just strengthens the resolve to resist. And so success is when I treat each person as an individual that had a unique understanding and perspective that is valued. And then when they bring that one, and maybe they have some great insight that we were totally missing, and that it makes it a better solve and solution than what I would have seen or that the team would have seen on our own. And then the other piece that I've seen successful, one of my mentors did it a lot, is he called it sort of the buddy system. Whether it was having a peer to be a partner or a board member to partner with the executive team. But when someone gets to know you, your mind, your heart, your motivations, then you have someone else that can help you navigate through your thoughts and how you're seeing it differently. And so the buddy system has worked, whether it's a mentoring relationship or actually a peer-to-peer relationship. So those would be the two: treat people as individuals such that they feel heard, recognized, and you understand what they're resisting or what they don't understand, to know how you can more effectively lead and communicate. And so then after that, a buddy system only ensures that there's a relationship that's being established inside of the organization.
But Jules, I get what you're saying, and I'm aligning with you 100%. But folks just don't want to change. I mean, I've done this over and over again. Someone would say that I've done this over and over again. It's been successful, and you still have that resistance. And and I know you've done this in the past, but I'll let you speak to it.
Yes.
You've been able to get folks to focus back on the mission as an organization. We have mission statements that say we want to be best in class. And I think that what happens is a lot of folks get away from that mission. Tell me about how you keep people on mission, because you talked about that. So mission and purpose is about the same thing. So how do you do that? And what ways do you draw them back to what's important?
I think the context for that success is based on the culture that you create. The culture is the true representation of your attitudes and your beliefs that ultimately determine the actions that you make, right? Everybody isn't a fit for an organization. And if a person is constantly the resistance and they can't seem to calibrate, understand, and get on board, the sign of a great leader is knowing when to help someone move to a better place. You know, Good to Great talks about making sure you have the right people on the bus in the right seats. Sometimes you have to help some people exit your bus, because what they'll do is hold somebody back, or they become this noise, and all of a sudden you have an issue that has metastasized in a way that you would prefer not to have dealt with, and you could have if you've only had treatment of that one issue. So part of it is the culture, the environment of what are those values, what are those beliefs, and then what are those behaviors and expectations that are there. And then when people aren't able to exemplify that or make the adjustments to be a part of the team, then you help them find where they're going to be best suited, which may mean it's not in your organization. It could be a different team, but it just may mean somebody's playing out of their position. And so if that's moving them from offense to defense, whichever way, but they could still be in tune to the mission. It's just that they're just not able to align around where you're going because something is incongruent. And I think at the heart of it, we're here for the same mission, the same goal. And if that's always clear and we're always establishing that at the onset, then when we have points of difference or perspectives that are not the same, we can have a more energizing and robust conversation because we're still trying to get to the same place together.
So how important is it for the leadership to be aligned? And then when they have the discussions with the broader organization, how important is it for them to be 100% aligned?
You can have the discussion inside about where our points of differences are.
Okay.
But the critical piece is when we've made a decision, it's when we leave that room, that meeting, that memo has to be taken forward as though it was one voice. Dissension is found quickly, and I believe you don't need an enemy at that particular point. You will implode because of your own doing. And so every leader must present that message, that decision, as though it was their own authoring. And that's when great leaders are there. I'm sure every cabinet, every leader, every president didn't agree with every person that was with them, right? Every CEO hasn't had a cabinet that's, you don't want yes women and yes men.
Mm-hmm.
You want people that are going to challenge you and bring new ideas. So you're going to have that discussion inside. But when we make a decision, the only way the rest of the organization can follow is if they see the same thing, hear the same thing all the time and everywhere.
So you're saying to resist the urge of going outside of that room and having a different message, even if you may agree with someone that's an employee that says that we should probably be thinking about it this way. You may have that idea or that thought in the organization boardroom, but when you leave that, you want to make sure you align and resist her. How do you resist the urge, or how do you tell someone to resist the urge of really telling what their true feelings are, even though they've aligned in the room, so it doesn't hurt the organization?
Well, I think what is usually going on is that people don't feel heard in the room, right? Do you really have a seat at the table? Do you really have a voice in the conversation? Because that's usually when people feel that they have to go tell it somewhere else because they didn't get the opportunity to tell it in the room where it mattered, right? And so I believe a great leader is always opening up the conversation to ensure that each of the invited that's a part of that team is actually providing contribution of thought or to push. And there's a phrase that we used to use inside of CPG. It's called intentional dialogue is the training. And we talked about having the left-hand column. And if we need permission to say things that go against the majority, the left-hand column says there's something that isn't working for me in this conversation. And I think once people feel that they've been heard and we have dialogue around it, when they leave, they can at least say, well, I understand why we voted this way. That doesn't mean that I agree that we should have given 6%, we should have stayed down to 4%. You at least can explain why and carry the message forward. It's when you shut people down and it's my way, the only way, and then you say, but because I said it, you go off and embrace it and do it. That's where I think the other conversations take place.
So it's about listening.
Yes,
giving
strong.
people the opportunity to be heard and not necessarily agree on everything, but be aligned on the essentials. And when you step at that door, you're one team voice.
That's exactly right. I don't think anyone that's been married, anyone that has a high school friend, a college friend, whoever's been with you over time, you did not always agree on everything. Mm-hmm. It's just because we're different people. Heck, I disagree with myself at times, right? I thought you wanted this for dinner and you don't want that for dinner. So if I can't always be in alignment with myself, surely there are going to be times where a completely different entity will have a point of view that I didn't even think about.
I'm always questioning what I'm going to eat for dinner. Always. So let me ask you this, Ray and Julie. You've put a lot of wisdom out there for us, and I really appreciate that. So if I'm a new business, if I'm starting an organization or new business, in the time that things are changing rapidly, how should I look at that as I start to put my toe into the water, or at least start to build? What should I be thinking about?
I would say for all the entrepreneurs and those that in the early chapters of the story that they're going to write in their business, you have to constantly be a student. I'm always reading and listening and studying about the things that are inside of the industry, but outside. So you have to stay on top of trends. You have to know what is coming. We talked about the Gretzky principle a lot in business. You have to know where that puck really is going. But that means you have to be a student of the sport to know that there is a puck and that it is in motion and what would be the physics of where it might go. So staying on top of information and trends and being a consummate learner is important. When we were children always asked, or at least mine did, always asked. So they will ask us.
And they still do.
Yes, and that's exactly right. And they still do. So ask questions, be curious. Because as a business owner, you don't know all. Even though I have had plans about where I would go, I thought I was going to be a pediatrician. But ask questions and you'll find out you may have passions, opportunities, and interests that lead you somewhere you could not have imagined was possible, right? And I think that's the journey, that's the joy of curiosity. You make discoveries and it expands on where you were initially in your idea. But of course, the scientist in me would say you got to have a plan.
Yes.
Without a plan, you're just lost in anywhere you might be at the destination. But you have to ask people for input, ask for feedback. People can see what you can't see, right? They can hold the mirror up and say, here's what you look like, and be willing to receive that they're saying it in love about the things that maybe are not so perfect as you thought. But I also have learned, one of my mentors used to say all the time, Julie, it's hard to be author and critic at the same time. So if you enroll people, they can't criticize things on the team that they help co-author. And so as an entrepreneur, how do you make sure you're getting input from multiple places and that you have your ear to the ground across the organization at all levels and communicate? As the marketer, you have to be an effective communicator because you're setting a vision. You're telling me what the story is going to be. It's not where we are, but can you see when we grow to whatever size or whatever is the milestone that you have? And then I think when change happens, you at least know that the North Star is still the North Star.
So if I could just recap what you just said, and I think it's so much stuff there. You said be an industry person, think about the industry,
Yes.
continue to learn, and have truth tellers.
Yes. You have to.
Yes.
You have to be and both. You can't be an either or person. Abundance is in the mindset of more or of adding, not of scarcity and subtracting. You can't just do one thing and think that that's all it takes to be successful. Study any person that you deem successful in their craft. They spend a lot of times and they've learned a lot. They probably failed a lot, maybe more than they have actually won. And so I think if you become a student of that, as a business person, treat yourself as an athlete. How are you training for what lies ahead? Are you getting the rest? Are you investing in your own body, in your own mind, and even in your own spirit? Because there will be some tough days. Who's going to be there to help get you where you need to be so that the rest of the organization can follow you and show up the way we all need you to deliver the service or the product that you're offering?
Jules, I go back to a time when we worked together at Purina. And you would set up sessions where we all had to do presentations, big presentations, where we would literally present in front of each other, and you and others would give, constructive feedback.
That's
and
right.
we would be in a session that we would all do that for each other because we wanted us to be the very, very best. And even though we may be feeling good about what's on our slide doesn't mean we need to read everything on that slide. Just really pick out the important parts. So you've always challenged, you've always been that truth teller for me, and I've always appreciated that about you. Before we end, I want you to just depart some wisdom on our audience, prospective leaders that may be going through change right now. If we could sum up this conversation, what would you tell them?
Probably a couple of things, Ron, and you're right. We had some great times back in the day. Maybe they'll be the olden days if we talk to our kids. But I'd have us to go back to when we were young. And my daughter loved Barney, that purple dinosaur. And he used to say that please and thank you are magic words. As leaders, I think we have to remember to say thank you and to have fun and have a heart of gratitude. Maya Angelou used to say, people don't care how much they know until they know how much you care. And as leaders, you have to embody that aspect because it's not what things look like. It's what you know that they can become, right? Just the moment in time is not the story of your life. And so you have to take time to appreciate people and appreciate opportunities because life is seasonal and it's going to have some vacillations along the way. But one of the most important pieces of change and of leadership is about how you guard your mind. My children, we used to say an affirmation every morning before we were heading out to daycare or to school. And it's an old proverb, and it's about watching the thoughts that you have. And so it says, watch your thoughts because they become your words. Watch your words because they become your actions. And watch your actions because they become your habits. And watch your habits because they become your character. And watch your character because it becomes your destiny. It's what you speak that determines what you become. You have to see it before you see it, is what one of my friends that's a preacher used to say. So how you speak about a thing, it's amazing how it turns and manifests itself because you gave that seed life. And so as leaders, as entrepreneurs, as business owners, we all have to guard our mind and ensure that our mouths are speaking into our future, and that we say to people, thank you. Because I think that humility is important as a leader, especially when things are moving and they're not the same as they were yesterday when it was comfortable, but we're in an uncomfortable place.
What great words of wisdom, and what a great way to end this. Julie, I really, truly appreciate you spending time with us tonight, and just really going through all of these principles and giving us these words of wisdom. I just appreciate you. You know I love you. You have been an inspiration. You've been a truth teller for me. You have been a partner in crime, and I really appreciate you.
Well, we are true partners, Ron, from day one. And so I'm grateful for an opportunity to reconnect and to share the learnings that we've had, that you've seen, and that we know to be true. And so hopefully we'll all practice exactly what has been shared. So thank you for the time.
Thanks again for joining us this evening in the segment of Let's Talk About It with Julie Spencer Washington, and we'll see you next time.